The lies linking me with the disgraceful Jeffrey Epstein need to end today. The individuals lying about me are devoid of ethical standards, humility, and respect. I do not object to their ignorance, but rather I reject their mean-spirited attempts to defame my reputation. I never been friends with Epstein. Donald and I were invited to the same parties as Epstein from time to time, since overlapping in social circles is common in New York City and Palm Beach.
What's happening, friends? Welcome to Dr. John podcast right now. Melania has hired a fixer to manage a crisis she can no longer control. Secrets surfacing through cracks that legal intimidation can't seal. The choice of who she hired tells you everything about how desperate the situation has become. What is emerging right now is the story of Amanda Angaro, and her decision to speak publicly represents a nightmare scenario for the First Lady. Angaro was one of Melania's closest friends, someone who moved through the same circle, attended the same events, and witnessed the same world from the inside. According to Angaro herself, she was the former girlfriend for a significant period of time of Paolo Zampoli, the man whose name keeps appearing at the center of this entire tangled web.
You haven't heard of Amanda Angaro, but she says she's been in the room for 20 years. She's Brazilian, a model, and she was pulled into the American dream the same way Melania was by the same man, Paolo Zampoli. Modeling agent, Trump loyalist, the man credited with discovering Melania, bringing her to America, and handing her quite literally to Donald Trump. Zampoli found Angaro too, recruited her, brought her over. And for years, she says, she sat at the same table, the Mar-a-Lago table, the New Year's Eve table, the one with Donald and Melania at the head of it. She and Zampoli were together for years. They separated in 2023.
Angaro's path into the United States is where the story takes its darkest turn. She entered the country through one of Jeffrey Epstein's sex traffickers, Jean-Luc Brunel, the French modeling agent who died under mysterious circumstances in France. His death was ruled a suicide, but it occurred under the same deeply suspicious conditions that surrounded Epstein's own death here in the United States. The kind of convenient demise that silences potential witnesses and leaves investigators with more questions than answers.
Angaro says that at 17 years old, she boarded Jeffrey Epstein's private jet, Paris to New York. Her agent, Jean-Luc Brunel, was with her. So were 30 other girls. Beautiful and very young, she told Brazil's O Globo newspaper. I felt immediate discomfort and wanted to get off the plane. I sensed something was wrong, but I did not fully understand the abuse at the time. She doesn't accuse Epstein of assaulting her directly, but she calls herself a product of his machine, the modeling ecosystem he and Brunel built specifically to traffic in young women. Brunel is dead, Epstein is dead, but Angaro is very much alive.
Angaro was eventually moved into this world of wealthy men and young models, and it was there that she met Paolo Zampoli when she was very young. A relationship developed between them. They had a child together, and they remained together for a long period of time, which means she was present for everything. She saw everything. She knows everything. Paolo Zampoli, for those who follow the reporting on this network, is the man who wanted to purchase modeling agencies in partnership with Jeffrey Epstein. He is also the man who, according to Melania's own authorized narrative, introduced Melania to Donald Trump at the Kit Kat Club.
Ao ser questionado pelo repórter se o comportamento seria genético, Zampoli usou termos vulgares para se referir às mulheres do Brasil. Chegou a usar palavrões e expressões machistas para dizer que todas se comportam da mesma maneira.
Le modelle brasiliane sono...
Le modelle brasiliane, la donna.
And this was the mechanism through which she allegedly met the man who would eventually make her first lady. Zampoli has since ascended to a position of considerable influence, essentially functioning as an ambassador for the United States. But his past has not released its grip on him. He found himself locked in a bitter custody dispute with his former girlfriend Angaro over their son, who is now approaching his teenage years. And it was during this dispute that Angaro made an explosive allegation. She claims that Zampoli used immigration and customs enforcement to expedite her deportation from the country, leveraging the machinery of the state to remove her from the picture. Zampoli denies this allegation. Melania denies any connection whatsoever to Jeffrey Epstein, insisting that all the photographs and all the emails are fabrications that should be dismissed without examination. But the evidence continues to accumulate, and the denials sound increasingly hollow against the volume of material surfacing. This is the type of material that Amanda Angaro is posting publicly, and it is devastating in its specificity and its fury. Before I share what she is saying, let me be clear that what follows is my opinion, protected by the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. If opinion speech or the First Amendment makes you uncomfortable, you are free to stop watching right now. My disclaimer is that I am exercising my constitutional right to deliver my opinion speech in this video. Does everyone understand that? Everyone comprehends the nature of what they are watching? Good. Then let us proceed to what Amanda Angaro is putting into the public record. She posts messages that carry the weight of someone who has decided she has nothing left to fear. She tells Melania that she will tear down the entire system, that Melania should be careful with her because she will dismantle the corrupt apparatus that protects the powerful, even if it is the last thing she accomplishes in her life. She declares that she will go all the way and that she is not afraid. Then she turns the knife. She suggests that perhaps Melania should be afraid of what Angaro knows, afraid of who Melania truly is and who her husband truly is. She threatens legal action against Melania and what she calls her pedophile husband. These are not the words of someone bluffing. These are the words of someone who has been inside the room, who has seen the machinery from within, and who has decided that silence is no longer an option. Angaro reminds Melania that she has known her for 20 years. 20 years of proximity, 20 years of shared experience, 20 years of accumulated knowledge about how this world actually operates. She reminds Melania that Melania knew she was detained by ICE. Melania was present in her life every year on her son's birthday, even sending Secret Service agents and being the first person to congratulate the child. Something was clearly wrong with the entire arrangement, but Angaro insists she is not part of any evil mission involving children. And then she asks the question that cuts to the heart of everything. So what did Melania do? She tried to involve Angaro in something, but she failed because Angaro has character. After 20 years, Angaro has reached her conclusion about who Melania really is. Angaro has also directed her attention toward Pam Bondi with a message that carries the implicit threat of someone holding documentary evidence. She asks whether Bondi is already aware of the situation, whether she fully understands the extent of the information that Angaro possesses regarding Bondi and individuals associated with her. She strongly advises Bondi to consider the seriousness of these matters, warning that any actions taken against her or attempts to escalate the situation could have significant legal consequences. This is not the language of idle gossip. This is the language of someone who believes she holds material that could cause genuine damage. She addresses Melania directly with the accumulated frustration of 2 decades. She was around Melania for 20 years. Melania knew she was inside an ICE detention facility, and Melania knew what hurt after all that time. Angaro stayed close to Melania's family, to her mother, to her father, not because of Melania, but because of them, attending events and maintaining connections. And now she tells Melania to shut her mouth when speaking about her because she will expose everything she knows. The threat could not be more explicit. And the strategy Angaro is employing is unmistakable. She is doing a drip, 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 releasing information piece by piece, letting the suspense build, allowing the anticipation of the next revelation to do as much damage as the revelations themselves. This slow torture is designed to maximize pressure, and it appears to be working. Melania must be in a state of constant anxiety, wondering what Angaro will release next and when she will release it. Meanwhile, Paolo Zampoli has adopted a posture that can only be described as astonishingly tone-deaf given the circumstances. He is actually bragging about appearing in the Epstein files. The man who introduced Melania to Donald Trump, the man whose name appears repeatedly in connection with Epstein's modeling agency schemes, is boasting about his inclusion in the documents as though it were a mark of status. At least he was included, he seems to suggest, because if you are not on the list, you are a loser. The arrogance is breathtaking, and it reveals a mind that believes connections to Epstein are something to celebrate rather than something to explain. This brings us to the fixer Melania has hired to manage this escalating disaster. Take a long look at this individual, Mark Beckman. This is Melania's fixer, the man she has entrusted with protecting what remains of her public reputation. He presents himself in a manner that is immediately distinctive. He wears all black, these peculiar black outfits that seem designed to project an image of menace and control. Mark Beckman wants everyone to understand his version of events, particularly regarding an alleged incident at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Beckman has been circulating a narrative that portrays Melania in heroic terms. According to him, Melania Trump was advocating to postpone the Correspondents' Dinner when officials convened in a side room after a shooting incident. The First Lady's exclusive senior advisor tells people that Melania pushed for caution and patience in the minutes following gunfire at the Washington Hilton Hotel. This portrayal is interesting for several reasons, not least because Donald Trump himself was posting photographs of Melania smiling in the aftermath of the incident. The contrast between Beckman's narrative of a concerned and cautious First Lady and the photographic evidence of a smiling Melania raises questions about which version of reality the public is supposed to accept. Was this incident some kind of entertainment for Melania? Did she find the situation amusing? The photograph shows her smiling, looking entirely composed and untroubled by the events that had just unfolded. This image was posted not by a hostile media outlet, but by Donald Trump himself, which makes the attempt to recast her as a voice of restraint and caution difficult to reconcile with the visual record. The details surrounding the alleged incident itself continue to raise red flags. The incident did not take place in the ballroom area of the Washington Hilton, but occurred on a completely different floor, a detail that has never been adequately explained. The timing and location of events do not align with the official narrative, and the more one examines the sequence of what occurred, the more questions emerge. Before the incident took place, Melania was captured on camera being handed a note, a moment that takes on potentially sinister significance when considered alongside everything else that happened that evening. The photograph of Melania smiling, taken by her own husband and posted by him for public consumption, communicates a message that directly contradicts the image Beckman is now trying to construct. The article that Beckman planted in the media describes Melania as calm, decisive, and in full control when chaos broke out at the Washington Hilton ballroom and armed guards responded to the threat. Beckman says Melania believed the right course of action to ensure everyone's safety was to pump the brakes on the dinner and regroup at a future date. She was advocating within the room for that approach. She realized, according to Beckman, that it would take a while for the Secret Service to carry through with their protocol, and it was important for her to take the lead in that room and share her point of view. She apparently believed it was in everybody's best interest, including the Secret Service, to take their time. This is the portrait Beckman is painting, a portrait of leadership and composure under pressure. But who is the person constructing this portrait, and what else is she doing while her fixer works to reshape public perception? Melania is selling a product, a gold chain necklace priced at $600, branded with the words, "Vote Freedom." The irony is so thick it could choke you. The woman who resides in a White House that is actively suppressing voting rights. The woman whose husband's administration supports a Supreme Court that has systematically dismantled the Voting Rights Act of 1965, passed on a bipartisan basis by Congress, is hawking a $600 piece of jewelry that says, "Vote Freedom." The audacity of monetizing the very concept that the regime she represents is working to undermine is genuinely staggering. This is not a serious person engaged in serious work. This is someone exploiting her position for commercial gain, while her fixer runs interference against the consequences of her dark past. Mark Beckman has been busy on Melania's behalf, appearing on state regime media to deliver threats and ultimatums. He went on the air and declared that Jimmy Kimmel is done, that whatever score needed to be settled with the late-night host had been resolved through the sheer force of Melania's legal and public relations machinery. Then he appeared on another right-wing regime network, one of these propaganda outlets outlets that exist to amplify the administration's messaging, and he delivered a warning that was unmistakable in its intent. If media organizations continue to publish stories connecting Melania to Jeffrey Epstein, they will face lawsuits. She is not connected to Epstein at all, Beckman insists, and anyone who suggests otherwise will confront serious implications. This is a serious person, he claims, and she is ready to create serious consequences for those who cross her. Beckman runs through the list of targets Melania has already pursued. James Carville, the political commentator who has been a persistent critic. HarperCollins UK, the publishing house that dared to publish material she found objectionable. All of these individuals and entities, according to Beckman, have been forced to publicly apologize and retract their statements. She won in all 3 of those cases, he boasts, and she is not going to stop. There is no reason for this person to stop fighting for her dignity. She has not done anything wrong. She is not connected to the disgraceful Jeffrey Epstein at all. She will keep fighting because her reputation is impeccable. The apologies and retractions, Beckman notes with apparent satisfaction, are never covered as heavily as the original accusations, so the public rarely hears about the vindication that Melania has supposedly achieved. But the timeline Beckman references is revealing in its selectivity. The past few months have seen an acceleration of damaging information, not a resolution of it. The FIXER's bluster cannot conceal the fundamental weakness of his client's position. If Melania truly had nothing to hide, if the photographs and emails were genuinely fabricated, if the witness accounts were entirely without foundation, the strategy would be transparency rather than intimidation. Innocent people do not need FIXERs. Innocent people do not dispatch lawyers to threaten billion-dollar lawsuits against journalists. Innocent people do not rely on the distinction between accusations being heavily covered and retractions being ignored as the mechanism for protecting their reputations. The entire approach reeks of someone who understands that the truth is not her ally, and that her only viable strategy is to make the cost of telling that truth prohibitively expensive. Melania's team of fixers has now shifted into a new phase of public relations, posting content designed to portray her as a figure of purpose and dedication. They post that First Lady Melania Trump remains laser-focused as she continues her mission. But what mission? What is she actually doing? What is she accomplishing? The question hangs in the air unanswered because there is no coherent answer to provide. She has no policy portfolio of substance. She has no initiative that has produced measurable results. She has no legacy of achievement that will outlast her time in the White House. The language of mission and focus is empty rhetoric designed to fill the void where actual accomplishments should reside. The fixer himself is a figure of considerable peculiarity, and the more one observes him, the more questions his presence raises. Watch the footage of him in action, and you see someone who appears profoundly uncomfortable in his own skin, delivering threats and pronouncements with an affect that is difficult to categorize but impossible to ignore. He is the oddest figure to have emerged in this entire strange saga, and yet Melania has chosen him as her defender, her spokesperson, her shield against the accumulating evidence of her dark past. The choice reflects either desperation or exceptionally poor judgment, and neither possibility reflects well on the First Lady's capacity to navigate the crisis that is consuming her public image. The awkwardness extends beyond the fixer to Melania herself. Recent footage of her interacting with dignitaries at White House events reveals a woman who seems perpetually disconnected from her surroundings, going through motions that she has never fully mastered. The tennis court appearance was particularly revealing, an event where her discomfort was visible to anyone watching with clear eyes. The years of scrutiny have not produced a more polished public figure. They have produced someone who appears to be enduring her role rather than embracing it, counting the days until she can retreat from the stage that she never truly sought. The accumulation of evidence, the testimony of witnesses like Amanda Angaro, the photographs that cannot be unexplained away, the emails that leave a documentary trail, the fixer whose threats reveal more than they conceal, all of it paints a picture that is becoming increasingly difficult for the public to ignore. Melania constructed her public identity on a foundation of mystery and inaccessibility, calculating that silence would be interpreted as dignity and distance would be mistaken for elegance. But the past has a way of catching up, and the people who were present during the years she would prefer to keep hidden are beginning to speak. Angaro's drip, drip, drip strategy is methodically dismantling the wall of silence that Melania has relied upon for decades. Each new post, each new allegation, each new suggestion of what she knows and what she might reveal next adds another crack to the facade. The FIXER can threaten lawsuits. The legal team can dispatch cease and desist letters. The allies in regime media can attack the messengers and question their credibility. But none of these tactics can change what actually happened during those years in New York and Palm Beach. None of them can erase the connections that were formed and the events that occurred. The truth has a resilience that no FIXER can overcome, no matter how menacing his wardrobe or how aggressive his threats. Melania's dark past is surfacing because dark pasts always do. The only question that remains is how much more will emerge before the drip becomes a flood.